Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving into an intriguing topic: legal perspectives on value. We'll explore how value is defined within the legal framework, touching on property rights, contractual considerations, intellectual property, and the impact of regulations. Additionally, we'll look at the different methods used to assess legal value and how courts interpret these issues. I'm excited to take you through this comprehensive overview of the interplay between law and value. Let's get started. When we talk about value in a legal context, it's important to recognize that value isn't just one thing. It can mean different things depending on the situation. Sometimes it refers to economic worth, like how much something is financially. Other times, it relates to legal entitlement or even the broader importance something has in society. Value plays a vital role in legal transactions. It helps determine things like compensation when someone is owed money, taxation levels, and damages in cases where harm has occurred. Essentially, it guides how resources and obligations are quantified and managed. One of the most important distinctions to keep in mind is between market value and legal value. Market value is what you'd expect, the price something would fetch in an open marketplace. Legal value, however, goes deeper. It considers laws, ownership rights, and any restrictions that might affect the worth of an asset or property. These legal factors can significantly influence value, shaping outcomes in disputes, sales, and other legal dealings. Understanding these different facets of value helps us appreciate the complexity behind legal assessments and decisions. When we talk about property rights, it's important to understand how they're classified. Property rights fall into three main categories: real property, which includes land and anything permanently attached to it; personal property, meaning movable goods; and intellectual property, which covers creations of the mind like inventions or artistic works. Legal ownership is central to value because it gives the owner exclusive rights. This means the owner can use the property, transfer it to someone else, or prevent others from using it. These exclusive rights are what make ownership valuable and enforceable. However, the ability to transfer property is not always straightforward. Often, there are limitations like liens, mortgages, or easements. These are known as encumbrances. They can restrict how freely the property can be sold or used. These encumbrances can also have a direct impact on value. They may reduce the property's worth or make it more complicated to determine that value accurately. In essence, ownership isn't just about possession. It's about having those exclusive rights that allow control over the property's use, transfer, and exclusion of others. Understanding these concepts is key when considering property valuation. Consideration is a key concept in contract law, referring to something of value that is exchanged between parties to create a binding agreement. This exchange of value is essential because the enforceability of any agreement largely depends on whether there is valid consideration involved. Not only does value play a critical role in forming contracts, but also affects the legal remedies available if a contract is breached. When disputes arise, courts carefully assess the benefits and losses exchanged between the parties to decide on appropriate damages. Understanding how value operates in these contexts helps clarify why not all agreements are legally enforceable. When we talk about intellectual property, or IP, we're looking at different types like patents, trademarks, and copyrights. Each of these protects a specific kind of intangible asset. Patents safeguard inventions, trademarks cover brand names and logos, and copyrights protect creative works like music or writing. Valuing these IP assets is a bit more complex than valuing physical property. It involves evaluating how much these assets contribute to a company's competitive edge, their potential to generate revenue, and how strong the legal protections around them are. The value assigned to intellectual property has a significant impact on a company's business decisions. It often plays a key role in legal cases, especially when disputes arise over infringement or licensing agreements. Understanding this value helps businesses navigate strategies and protect their innovations effectively. When we talk about value, it's important to recognize how legal frameworks shape its determination. Various laws, like tax codes and financial reporting standards, set specific rules that influence how value is assessed and used in different contexts. Compliance with these rules is crucial because they can impose restrictions or obligations that directly impact asset valuation. For instance, Environmental regulations might limit how a property can be used, which affects its value. Similarly, financial disclosure laws can influence how market values are assessed by requiring transparency and accuracy. These statutory requirements are essential to understanding the full picture of value in any legal or financial setting. When we look at landmark court decisions, they really set the tone for how value is understood within legal frameworks. These key cases don't just interpret value in the abstract, they provide clear guidance on how value should be assessed. This includes important factors like fairness, considering current market conditions, and respecting legal rights. Because of these precedents, courts and legal professionals have established standards to rely on when resolving disputes or determining valuations. Essentially, these precedents act as a solid reference framework that promotes consistency and fairness in valuation methods across various legal contexts. When courts evaluate the value of an asset or business, they typically rely on three main valuation methodologies. First, the market approach, which looks at comparable transactions. Essentially, we examine what similar assets have sold from the market to estimate a fair value. Next, there's a cost approach, which is grounded in the idea of replacement or reproduction costs. This means we consider how much it would cost to recreate or replace the asset in question. Finally, the income approach focuses on future earnings. By capitalizing those expected earnings, we can determine the present value of the asset. Each method has its strengths, and the choice depends on the specific circumstances of the case. When dealing with legal valuation, one of the main challenges we encounter is evidentiary limitations. This often means working with incomplete data or having to navigate subjective judgments, which can complicate the valuation process. Another significant challenge arises from the variation across jurisdictions. Different courts or case types might apply distinct standards and interpretations, making it harder to maintain consistency. To effectively address these issues, it's crucial to rely on thorough documentation and expert testimony while strictly following established methodologies. Finally, clearly articulating all assumptions is essential to ensure that the valuation results are both credible and consistent throughout the legal process.